Happy Tuesday. Welcome to the Leasing Highway podcast, a podcast focused on the heartbeat and passionate voices of the apartment industry. I'm Karen Gladney.
And I'm Ian Andrews, and today we have an incredible guest that we're super excited to have on here, who is Daryl Smith. Daryl is the Senior Vice President and Chief Marketing Officer of Kettler. So welcome, Daryl. We're super excited. I'll let you introduce yourself and give us a little bit of history about how you got into your current role.
Well, thank you, Karen and Ian, for that very warm. I'm very excited to be here with you guys this afternoon and chatting about leasing and the future generation of leasing. And you asked Ian, what was my highway kind of in getting to where I'm at, and sharing a little bit on that, appropriate based on your title of your show.
I like it.
I sort of describe my highway, if you will, to multifamily, kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Where there's a yellow brick road. So there was a yellow brick road from me transitioning from being in television for 10 years into being into multifamily now for 21 years. And I always, the short version of that, or the cliff notes, is that Big Bird got his wings clipped. And so with that, I had to find a new nest, new career, if you will. And I started in multifamily, basically from leasing and marketing, working my way all the way up to the current world that I'm in now. So that's the great news about multifamily is, there's a lot of career tracks and a lot of people who have certainly joined the industry from other industries and, certainly have been equally as successful. So I'm very fortunate and very blessed in that sense, and certainly happy to be where I'm at today.
Yeah, it's people enter at all different times in their career. It isn't just somebody entering right out of college or before, like while they're in college, or later in their careers. You're so right that highway entry point is different for everybody. And thinking about that, everybody knows the saying, if I knew now what I knew or knew then what I know now. I always get sayings mixed up. you know where I'm going.
Yeah.
How does that resonate with you when you think about your career in the industry? Because you learn so much in what you know today. Oh my gosh, can you imagine if you knew it when you started?
Well, I kind of would flip that around. I love excitement, and I think really journeying into the unknown, and certainly being someone who enjoys technology and enjoys innovation. Those are things that you just don't know how they're going to play out, even when you're planning for your next generation strategies. But I find them really exciting. And so equally, when I look back at, personal career, you wouldn't have been able to tell me in 1,000 years, about 30 years ago, that this is what I was going to end up doing. I really thought I was going to be taking Oprah Winfrey's place and doing that was my original aspiration. But things worked out better, and here I am. And so, certainly again, I really can't think of anything that if I would have known, I would have changed. I think that in some way changes sort of that personal ecosystem on really where your true destiny, is meant to be.
Totally. Yeah. With your current role of being a CMO and the role of marketing has changed so much in the last, 5 years and continues to do so. And it's, always been, this ongoing quest for ROI and but I just see so much change in what used to be, thought of as like a pretty basic portion of, signage and focusing on those just basic elements to really expanding to the whole digital ecosystem and beyond. And I'm curious to get, your take a little bit and talk around how things have changed and, what's your role as CMO for Kettler and things that are really making a difference on the marketing front in today's day.
Yeah. And that's a really good point. And I really think a really good illustration for everybody to really wrap their heads around, particularly as we start to really move to this next generation engagement with our consumers and really with our business operations models. The role of marketers in this industry has changed significantly, much to what you've said. And really the way I often describe that is, marketers have gone from being an administrative marketers to really now being more strategic and innovative marketers. Yep. And what that looks like is, I think, fortunately or unfortunately, our industry created the role and created the typology of engagement that our roles had in that administrative state. And when you think about some of our operational procedures and things that we had opportunities to do, in some levels it made sense, but it was certainly incompatible with how the marketing industry at large engaged the marketing roles. Yep. So, we caught up with that, and we realized, that opportunity to really make that shift as an industry and really reposition our roles to be strategic and really helping to align with the competitiveness that all of our companies endeavor to do in terms of that engagement with our consumers. So marketers now, instead of being the, hey, I'm going to put on the gorilla suit and go out and stand in the middle of the street, which I have done, by the way.
I'm with you.
And, create flyers and pass them out on site. We now have graduated to really being the strategist and really understanding and identifying what tools can help us be better connected to our consumers. And not only understanding what those tools are in terms of developing sales efficiencies and customer and consumer engagement efficiencies, but also having better data and really understanding insights on consumer behaviors and what they want and what are their traits. So now we become this stakeholder who really needs to principally understand that connectivity of technology and what its meaning is to the bottom line with our consumer engagement. And that's a huge shift, right? When you really think of gorilla suit to now I'm the guy that's really looking at modern technology and how to make that useful in my operations and how that cascades down to the bottom line. And so I think as we all have gone through our business continuity with COVID, I often liken COVID to being the banana peel that's propelling us forward. We were lagging in a lot of respects with technology and engagement with our consumers. Now we're really thinking about it in much more meaningful ways. And I call it the reimagination. How do we want to engage with our consumers? What is it we want to know about them to really understand their needs and what they want? So technology is allowing for us to enable and engage with our consumers in much more meaningful ways. Instead of us having a 9 to 5 clock with our consumers, technology is allowing for us to be able to engage them in a 24/7 format. So I'm excited. I really don't, if somebody could take my palm and forecast where that's going to go, I don't think I'd want that. I really want to engage through the myriad of challenges and really setting up that platform for that next generation engagement. So I'm excited about the opportunity and where we're going with this pivot.
Yeah, it is exciting to think about where we're going. I love what you shared with that, how much the role has changed. It's scientific. I mean, and the psychology behind it all. I know that's what you're saying when you're talking about the data, about gosh, the science, the technology, the psychology, it all it's just also impactful and crucial for you and your marketing team to know.
Yes, and you're correct. I describe it as an art and science. And certainly, for my role, which is kind of being that chief strategist around how do we connect our brand to be meaningful to our consumers. And while there's the residential consumer, and certainly some of us have business consumers and the clients that we serve, we still have a brand that has to have and convey meaning to all those different audiences. And so in my chief marketing role, Ian, and continuing to answer your question, really creating that connectivity and that strategy around how our brand can be meaningful to our consumers, and not only just to our consumers, but to the communities we serve. So certainly there's a meaning there in relativity, particularly for housing providers. How do we extend our brand to the community and create meaning so that the community can also be engaged into what we're doing? So I think from a CMO opportunity, that's just integral, to be able to transact amongst all those different business segments and really bring that brand to meaning and to life and telling that story to our consumer regarding our value.
The story is so important. Everybody talks about that and how crucial that is, whether you're on the vendor side or you're an on-site leasing professional or at the home office. The story is so crucial. You say the banana peel, and that this last year was the banana peel, and it's propelling us forward. What would you say are some of the accomplishments you're most proud of at Kettler over this last year?
Yeah, excuse me. So through that, I being able to realize and implement technology now has just been much more meaningful for not only me and my team, but certainly for the team that we partner with interdisciplinary in our organization. So, thinking of, a year and a half ago where we were saying, yes, we've got to have these virtual tools and here's work. It immediately became, oh my God, those virtual tools you were talking about, when can we get them and how fast?
Right.
which the good news was, because we did have a blueprint for knowing that we needed these tools and how we could transact and activate and pull them together, we were able to pull that connectivity together for our consumers within 48 hours when COVID hit. So everything, when we were forced to shut down, we were ready to come up with this and implement the solution rather quickly. So that was great for us. But that also was the first brick, if you will, in our road of building out the rest of our technology platform. So that was exciting for me, that we didn't really have to really sell the story anymore. The story now became real. And so now it became time for us to really transact and put together all those tools along the roadmap. So with that, we were able to build out our marketing technology stack, which for marketers is a really important. For marketing, it's shortened and called MarTech stack. So for us, we were able to build our marketing technology stack that illustrates what are those technology tools that we're using to engage our consumers and what are they solving for. What that eliminates is, one, duplication, and then two, it also then is really keeping us really finite on our strategy. What tools are we bringing in and why? And so instead of chasing shiny toys every day, we're chasing those solutions that are truly relative to the gaps that we have at play to be competitive. So for us, we've been able to, in the last year, we've been able to build that singular platform across all of our properties of very key tools to be able to engage that next level connectivity. So that was the biggest accomplishment in the last year, and we are tremendously excited about it. Going into this year now, as part of aligning that along a customer journey, we're looking at the customer experience and starting to build that profile out. So for the last year, the biggest accomplishment was digitizing the prospect experience and the sales process. The second half of that is going to be digitizing that customer experience. Can residents pay online? Can we conduct sales online so that we have a sales funnel of in-store and online sales engagement? How do we also extend that digital experience in the customer experience once they join us, to make their life more efficient and to make our teams who are executing their lifestyle, more efficient as well. So that's the second half of the journey that, maybe in a year from now, I can tell you how those milestones.
Yeah. We'll have part 2 in a year from now. I feel like the story too, as I hear you talk, is kind of like a mission statement. We'll come back to that in a second, but we're going to take our first break and then we'll be back with Daryl. Thank you, Daryl.
Welcome to your beautiful new apartment home here at Gables Point 14. As you can see, we're featuring this beautiful one-bedroom den.
Welcome to the Get Focused podcast, a show with stimulating conversation about optimizing our human potential for those who think outside of the box. You'll hear thought-provoking conversation designed to help you blow past your obstacles and create strength and motivation in everything you do. Now, it's time to start thinking outside of the box. It's time to get focused.
Welcome back, everyone. So when we left there, we were talking a lot about some of Daryl's biggest wins at Kettler and his job as being CMO, and I think throughout that entire time, what I really found was just you could really see how much it's the job of CMO and marketing as a whole has changed from the checking boxes and making sure sure that you do what's on the list to that strategy and all the work that you've put in and Kettler has put into really thinking through how to impact the end users and what that does. And there's so many different elements that you can now use from a technology standpoint. So super impressive and excited to see what comes of this next adventure that you're working on there. So for the next question, I wanted to jump into what really was that the industry's made a concentrated effort over the past year to bring diversity and gender equality to the forefront of the conversation. And while there's still a long way to go, curious on what are some ways that we can do better in this area as an industry.
Yeah, that's a great question. I'm certainly glad that you asked that. We just did a reimagination and a relaunch of our diversity and inclusion and equity committee. And certainly, much like a lot of companies, we are pondering too, what are the opportunities we have before us to recruit, talent of color. And certainly from the larger industry standpoint, and I just had this conversation a couple of days ago, a lot of folks really think, going to the feeder universities, which in our industry, there's just a few that have programs that are dedicated to property management. But what I would say is extend that opportunity beyond those traditional schools to historically Black colleges and universities. And while they may not have traditional programs in real estate or property management, certainly look at areas like finance, look at areas like marketing and business, because also skill sets and educational values that feed into a lot of some of the career paths that we offer in multifamily. The other thing that I have found, with the communities of color is just this career in multifamily is unknown. They just don't know it exists. I didn't know it existed. When I stumbled across the industry, I was surprised to know that there was an infrastructure behind this office where you drop rent off. I'm like, all of that goes to support paying my rent at this office.
So true.
I think there's an opportunity to really educate on a industry that is just unknown, and not only to just communities of color. I think the industry is just unknown to a lot of communities that are out there. But I certainly think for a focus on recruitment of talent of color, I do think going to historically Black colleges and universities would present a tremendous opportunity, because again, you have students who are eager to take that educational experience and deploy it into new and unforeseen fields. So I know I've heard a lot of discussion about recruitment from different schools, but I do think having an actionable roadmap to accompany, hey, we'll target a historically Black college and university, but what is that actionable roadmap? Are you developing internship programs that hopefully are going to lead to a parallel career opportunity for that candidate? Are we developing relationships, with those schools where we may take a graduate level course or an undergraduate level course and let that class solve for a real life problem that we may be having? So how do you engage those, schools in, again, a real actionable roadmap so that they are a part of your company's experience or a part of this industry's experience, so that we can start to develop interest, from talent in those respective areas?
Such a great point. Taking the vision to actual implementation and execution is so crucial. And two, our industry has so much opportunity. It's really exciting. Earlier, Daryl, you mentioned that you don't want to have a crystal ball and see into the future. But when you do think about everything that is at our fingertips right now, what do you see for the leasing front line over the next 5 to 10 years? And more specifically, that bridge, because you've mentioned technology a lot, but we've also talked about the psychology and that human component. As those continue to be bridged, what do you see as the future possibilities?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of future, and certainly, as you pointed out, technology is going to be the crux of it. I see things, and I'll just give some examples. Your leasing, centers. Are there going to be standard configuration specs along that? Certainly, that's something we've been discussing and partnering with our development teams of. What does that look like? Do we have standard specs as we develop new assets that accommodate this new environment? Whether it's, hey, we want an environment that's all touchscreens, and so there's a self-service opportunity for our customers when they come in, because we know that consumers want more self-service touch points in their engagements. So do we configure in our in-store experience opportunities for a touch and go, if you will, self-service environment with virtual tools? So thinking out, even how you're going to have your internet accommodating, the enablement of some of these tools, because a lot of them do have some internet-based enablement. So thinking about your configuration with technology and how they best create that experiential experience for your consumer is certainly going to be key, particularly for developers. Secondly, I think too, we have to imagine, with our consumers, again, along that same vein of options, we have to imagine in that online sales experience. Right now, we create this one cloud called traffic, and everything just gets funneled and pushed to the in-store experience. And in that sense, we're really creating friction for our consumer, because then we're saying to them, hey, you've somehow got to come into the property to convert. We know from as being consumers ourselves, that's really not the case. We can consume anything we want right now at the click of our fingertips on our keyboard. But it's kind of odd, don't you think, at this juncture, that as an industry, we aren't allowing for our consumers to be able to, at one click, choose their apartment. Now, yes, technically you can, but have we adopted that as a mainstream strategy, for our industries that our consumers truly understand and are comfortable with, and that we're starting to see numbers and seeing data that we can see, hey, we have a significantly higher portion of our consumers who engage online. And that would be in alignment with other industries where you see the brick and mortar experience start to transcend and change very differently. How are we also playing into that space where consumers want that digital engagement? One of my biggest pain points and feeling hurts is when the automotive industry surpassed us, where now they are, leasing their products sight unseen. And certainly purchasing a home and purchasing a vehicle were two very, very, very emotional considerations for consumers. And so the automotive industry was very parallel with us with their gaps in being lagging, both from their in-store experience, and certainly they had no presence from an online experience as well. Everything was driven in-store. Well, now they've started an opportunity where it is digital. You can choose your car in 30 minutes or less, and it can also be delivered to your home, down to the spec of what you want. So you don't have to come into the showroom to actually experience, touch, and feel the product. And so we have to challenge ourselves in that next generation reimagination to bring our standards up to par, particularly digitally, so that there's choices on the online engagement. And then certainly if someone is opting to come in store, how are we making that experience be different from the 45-minute traditional guided tour to, hey, I can take a self-service 15-minute virtual tour and then take a tablet device and I can continue on with the digital leasing aspect of things, or other options very similar that make it effortless.
Right.
So that we're not just necessarily driving our consumer in store, but that we're creating frictionless touch points for them to be able to engage with us. So I think, again, a reimagination of that prospect engagement model is really going to be key. And certainly you can see how that cascades to play out both from an online standpoint as well as an in-store standpoint. So using chatbots, which a lot of companies are starting to deploy to help with that online sales engagement, so that you can have a 24/7 experience and answering questions, for your consumer, much like a live leasing associate would do. Those are going to be very critical touch points to be able to have and plot along your customer journey in terms of that next generation model.
You said so much. Oh, sorry. You got me real riled up. You said so much in there. I really wish I had like a notepad, because I'm taking notes. I mean, when you talked about the programming of the leasing office, that has always been so important, and marrying the designers, our decorators, with what our intent is. And there's just, oh my gosh, just so many things you said. Sorry, Ian, go ahead.
Yeah.
Oh, no. I mean, I love, a huge theme that I hear too is just, making that information just more accessible and easier to do. Whether it's Amazon, implementing their one click, or, we had a client who came in and said, I accidentally bought a Tesla because I just clicked one button, and I think it's those kind of things of like, there's so much administrative blockers in place that just and we're finding out ways to make it easier, to make it a better user experience, and continuing to just get the information that our prospects and our residents want in their hands faster. So
and one thing I want to add to that really quick that I think is going to be important is to ask yourself the question of, how do I know I need those things? And the way that, you also have to simultaneously develop, an informational sort of, database with your consumers so that you can understand, again, as I mentioned earlier, more about that consumer. What do they want? What are their traits? And so how does that inform you then on how to build out that leasing configuration, or how to build out, those next generation resident experiences? I think right now, if we really stop and think about it, we're choosing from an educated standpoint, as, property management companies and as an industry, what we think, consumers want. And we're doing a pretty good job, right? However, having that extra data and being more data centric, I think is going to be key. And so certainly and Karen, the word you use quite a bit is psychology, and it's called psychographics in marketing. And so really extracting psychographics of behaviors, of traits, and having a customer data, strategy is really, really important, because that's what's going to inform how you engage the sales process, how you configure the sales process, and then also how you enable the longevity of that customer journey with your asset. So, and the way to best do that is for any existing vendor that you have today, your vendor partners, is what data do they have along that customer journey, and how can you extract that data to either be first-party data or third-party data, but at some point just knowing, hey, along the customer journey, what tools are helping me extract information about my consumer that's going to be important to me in either creating loyalty and or creating that longer life cycle for them with our assets.
Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, what is probably a lot of this that we've already chatted about, but curious, what excites you most for 2021 and what's to come here? Is there anything in particular that you're really excited about?
Yeah, well, there's lots of things that I'm always excited about. I feel like every day I wake up just having the opportunity to do what I want, so to speak, with the marketing structure around innovation and technology just really excites me. But the thing that excites me, the most right now is really positioning and pivoting into that consumer experiential engagement. And that's really just creating and reimagining, how do we create an experience for our consumer? Is it as simple as, hey, greetings, good morning, very happy to see you, Mr. Smith? Or are there things like having, targeted refreshments or a scent program that really consistently enables their memory, if you will, along psychographics of, wow, I had a great experience, at a Kettler community. And every time I smell the certain smell, it just brings all these wonderful experiences back together. And I really liken it, as we're talking about that internally, I say we're reimagining the basics. Back 20 years ago, we were taught to stand up and shake hands, to smile, to have sales goals. There were certain ways that we did need to present ourselves with our residents and how we responded to them. And I think we've gotten a little away from that, as an industry. We have an opportunity to reimagine those basics in today's format with how consumers want to be engaged. So I'm really excited to really explore data and really understanding, how do our consumers want to be engaged? What are they expecting from us? And how can we make that life cycle for them be, that more enriched as a result of that planning? So looking at models like the hospitality model, they've already nailed that. So it's not like we have to reinvent as a science. We have some models and platforms already before us that we can borrow from sister industries like the hospitality industry to really engage that experiential value for our consumers.
I feel like you've climbed into my mind and my secret dreams, and that we are kindred spirits, because the senses and the experience, it is so true. And it doesn't, even when we invite technology in, we can still create that magical experience. Yeah. So, oh my gosh, I feel like I've got goosebumps. We need to go have cocktails. We could have a whole session on 3 or 4 of these questions, but it's been delightful, and we even skipped. I don't know if you realize that. We skipped our second commercial. We just had to let this roll. This was such great information that you were. No, this is great. Like I said, we're not ESPN, but we have to get our walk-off home run question in that we ask everybody. And you have had a lot of advice throughout this, but when we talk about that person who's just entering the industry, again, they could be a 20-something or a baby boomer. What piece of advice would you give somebody just entering the industry?
Yeah, I would say be bold. And when I say be bold, that is, I have certainly been very fortunate in this industry to start over a whole new career, from the bottom all the way up. And, I would like to say it's a short period of time in 21 years, but it's been a great time. And I think a lot of that has been because I have, felt comfortable to step up and share ideas that, have inspired my stakeholders at that time. And, wow, that's a great idea. Let's try that. Let's do that. And I think if you come in passive, you'll stay pigeonholed in a role. But I think this is an industry that is thirsty for ideas, and they really want ideas. And, this is just an industry that you can grow in any segment very, very but be bold. And I think we're at an intersection with our industry in this pivot with COVID that companies are looking for bold thoughts and really helping to reimagine, those next generation experiences much along, the lines of what we've had an opportunity to talk about today. So I just encourage, people to be inspired and really know that we're at a evolution/revolution from, the Barney, Flintstones sort of revolution to now taking things to sort of the modern, appointments of things. So bold. Don't be afraid to inspire others with your thoughts and just really thinking about how we can make this industry more innovative and less friction.
Oh, I love that. I think that's such an important message. Daryl, thank you so much.
Thank you.
This has gone by fast. It always does. And you've been such a treat, and we're honored. Thank you for joining us today so much.
Absolutely. My pleasure. This was great.
All right. Have a great day. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Daryl.
See you next Tuesday.